Okay, we're live. And how you doing, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the John Riley Project. It's political season, and we're just so pleased to have so many different guests that have come here into the podcast studio just to have a nice long form conversation. And today, my guest is Delta Esparza, candidate for Poway Mayor. How are you, Delta?
I'm feeling great today. It's Sunday.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're getting into the
Yeah.
the heat of the whole political
Mhm.
season, and you're here, and thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, great. So let me just comment here to the listeners and viewers here on the live stream. You can all participate in this. It's we're high speed, we're interactive. It's a live stream. So if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, you can ask questions for Delta or myself, or maybe you have some comments you want to share. You can type them into the comments or chat section on either YouTube or Facebook. We'll see those questions here, and we'll entertain those questions, and you can participate. But we're going to spend a good deal of time here just getting to know Delta and getting to know a little bit more about you. So again, thanks.
Thank you.
So you're running for mayor, and I mean you're stepping up to the plate. Yeah, good for you.
Thank you so much.
Why are you running for mayor? What is driving you to be a candidate?
So, never in a million years have I thought that I was going to be in this position that I'm at right now. But I moved to Poway in 2019. I was finally able to buy my forever home
Nice.
in Poway. So I'm planning on aging in place. And so yeah, so I really enjoy Poway. I love the community, the tight-knit community. I love the farmers market. I love the ability to be able to hike Mount Whitson and Iron Mountain. I really like it. And so when I moved here, I started to see things just popping up all of a sudden. Like just I was like surprised with all the development that was going on Poway Road. And one of the things that really hit home was the Poway Fun Bowl. I lived in like about less than a mile from Poway for 13 years, and that's one of the places that I would visit is Poway Bowl to go bowling. My partner and I, we both like bowling, so we would be there often. And so, just losing Poway, it's just a sense of loss triggered me to run for mayor, and then just again just the development, and then just hearing people not just hearing folks be vocal about their concerns and the city not addressing their concerns, and it's just that sense of feeling of we're not being heard, we're losing power, we're losing the charm, we're losing the city and the country, and this is not the vision that we have for this town, and that's why I decided to run.
I mean, that's incredible, really. I mean, we got together, it was a few days ago, had some coffee at King's Coffee down there by the North County Soccer Park at Espola and Twin Peaks, and we had a wonderful discussion.
Yeah.
What I think you're doing is very brave. You recognize that there were challenges in our city, and you said, "I'm going to do something about it." I mean, what are you hearing from voters? Or what are the comments and questions, their concerns? What are they telling you when you're out campaigning?
The number one thing, or the top two, is that folks feel that they're not being heard by city council. They have a lot of concerns. And we've seen that at city council. We've seen the McGee Orchard folks go to city council and have these concerns about the layout of the community that's going to be built there, how the road is going to be laid out. Is it going to be a cul-de-sac, or is it going to be a road like going all the way out to Twin Peaks? And then how many units are going into that cul-de-sac? And then the Larchmont project as well. There's about 10 homes that are going into that area, and it's impacting the hillsides there, and the biodiversity and the natural habitat. And so there's that. There's also, just with what's going on Poway Road, it just feels very unplanned. It feels like there's no vision. And because of that, we're starting to see impacts to traffic, impacts to the residential neighborhoods. There's the overflow from Poway Road that's now causing the nearby residential neighborhoods to become thoroughfares. And this is not something that folks foresaw in the future, that their residential neighborhood where their kids play and hang out, and that it was going to be a thoroughfare for cars.
Mhm.
So also another thing just recently, and it's just a lot of stuff that I don't think about because I'm not in that position. We all have different journeys in our lives, and we're all going on different paths. One person that I spoke to just recently told me, like, what are we doing for kids that have special needs? He's like, because I have a child that has special needs. Like, what are we doing for that? Like, what services are available for my child? Another recent concern that a resident had was the horse owners. Our trails are we feel like we're being shut out of the community. And this was supposed to be like the city and the country. And now the horse trails are uh, being impacted. There's not that many horse trails available now to ride your horse. And there's a sense that they're getting like shoved out, that their concerns are not a priority. And it's just stuff like that. I am not a horse owner. So I was like, I didn't think about that. But you know what? I've been living just pretty much down the street since 2006. And I do remember driving down Twin Peaks and remember like seeing folks on their horses on Twin Peaks. And I was like thinking, when was the last time I saw that? When was the last time I saw somebody riding their horse on Twin Peaks? And I can't remember how long that's been. It's been a
You're
long
right.
time.
I mean, I can't remember the last time that I've seen
Yeah.
horses on some. I mean, it always looked a little bit odd, 3 or 4 years ago
Uh-huh.
when you'd see it occasionally. But you're right. I don't think I can recall seeing horses on some, near the major thoroughfares. I mean, for a lot of different reasons, but yeah,
Yeah.
traffic is up. There's a lot more going on.
Hmm.
You touched on a number of topics there, and hope we can maybe do a little bit of a deeper dive. You talked about the McGee project,
Hmm.
and that's the one kind of near Twin Peaks
Hmm.
and Midland,
Yes.
right? And then you talked about, what was the other one? Was the
Larchmont
and where is that?
subdivision. It's right off of Pomerado. It's north of Twin Peaks and Pomerado. And actually, if you head north on Pomerado and if you look to your right, you could see the orange outline fencing right from Pomerado Road. If you just look to the right, heading
Okay,
north,
so
and you
it's
could
up along
see,
the edge of Twin
yeah,
Peaks.
yeah, and you could just they're already like um, putting the boundaries of like where that subdivision's gonna go, and it's pretty high up the hill.
Right.
It's very visible from Pomerado. And it's pretty big. It's and just from the little bit that I've seen on Pomerado, off of Pomerado, it's a pretty vast area. I've been meaning to go and drive into the neighborhood. I just haven't gone around to doing that, but yeah.
I mean, there really are. I mean, you talk about those two projects.
Hmm.
Of course, everything on Poway Road. There's the farm in Poway up
Yep.
on Espola, and there's a number of other projects that are either getting started or
Hmm.
are on their way to getting started. Let's first talk about Poway Road, because
Yeah.
that's the one I think that gets most people hot and bothered. I mean, there's been so much change on Poway Road. Kind of walk us through your thoughts on the development there, the things you like, the things you don't like, maybe some of the things that if you could go back in the time machine, you'd do differently, and maybe some of the things that you would do differently starting, assuming that you are successful in your campaign, what you'd like to do moving forward.
Uh, so I feel that there are several examples right now that we could look at as far as towns that are investing in their communities, in revitalizing their neighborhoods. And some of those examples is Escondido. They have Grand. That town has spent a significant amount of money investing on Grand. The things that they're doing is that they're expanding their sidewalks. They are adding lights uh, down Grand, like those backyard lights.
Yeah, the string
Yeah, the
lights.
string lights.
Yeah.
And they're also going to be adding a roundabout. And that is something that I'm really curious about. I personally like roundabouts. So I'm like, wow, putting a roundabout on Grand, like that's pretty risky, but they're going to do it. And they did an assessment and they thought that this is the best path forward is to add a roundabout, and it helps with street calming measures. They're also downsized on the number of lanes. They had to do that because they had to expand the sidewalks. But they really thought, like, what does the community need? What do they want? How can we build a main street that will be welcoming to the residents, a place that they could call home and that is cozy, and a place where they can hang out with their family and their friends. So I feel like that's a great example is Escondido. Like, we could take, look at, see what they're doing, see how we can incorporate those ideas on Poway Road. Another town that is also revitalizing their neighborhood is Vista, their main street. And per my understanding, they're looking at about $30 million that they're looking at investing. Now, the question is, what can we do with Poway Road? Well, one of the things that we could do is start looking at all those empty businesses that are sitting there. Like, for example, Rite Aid, that I'm aware of has been sitting vacant for at least 5 years. Per my understanding is that's privately owned, and we might have to be looking at zoning to figure out a way forward with some of these empty retail shops. But what I'm thinking is that we did not get the outpost. That we didn't get it. So, but maybe we can do something similar with what we currently have. Maybe we can convert Rite Aid into a food hall. My understanding is that Rite Aid is between 11 to 15,000 square feet. For a food hall, it could be between 5,000 to 20,000. And so Rite Aid, from a square footage perspective, it's just like right on, probably in the sweet spot for a food hall. And then that venue can also be used to do like open mic night. We could also add some arcades, because that's another thing that I've been hearing from the folks around Poway is that there's nothing to do for the kids at a certain age, like the teenagers. They're like looking for something to do. Poway Bowl's gone. The arcades are gone. What else is there to do to like go and hang out with your friends at that age? And I'm like, maybe this food hall can also accommodate that. Create a space also for the youth to come and hang out and, with their friends and enjoy some time, and maybe some music, and with open mic night. I mean, there's just so many possibilities and just so many things that we can do now.
You raise a lot of things there, because you're right. I mean, Escondido, Grand Avenue,
Yeah.
that's a wonderful, stretch there
Yeah.
with some really nice restaurants and shops, and it's a great place to hang out. My wife and I, when we go meet my mom, she's like in an independent living place in Escondido. We enjoy taking her there, and it just kind of has a cool vibe, right? That my mom really enjoys. And you're right. Carlsbad also just a beautiful city, and these cities have a plan. Now, apparently, Poway has a city plan as well. I've heard it hasn't been updated in a very long time, and I think that's one of the concerns that a lot of people have, is that things are happening so fast with so many changes.
Yes.
So how would you approach city planning? I mean, what would be the steps you would take to try to build a paradigm or a system to allow this to happen?
I want to go back to our documents, to our city planning documents. And one of those, being the mother of them all, is the general plan. The year that is on that document right now, as far as the high level document, the general plan is like, I think 1991. That's the time, the year that's on that document. That's a long time. To me, that's just like completely outdated document. Things have changed since the 90s. Music has changed, architecture has changed, clothing. I mean, it's just like so many changes.
Yeah,
like
there are.
hairstyles have changed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, right now I bought a fixer upper, and it needs a lot of work. And I just went through a kitchen remodel, and it's like even kitchens, from the 90s are like outdated. Like, a lot of folks are like trying to remodel their kitchens that were built like in the 90s, because it's just like the kitchen that we had back then doesn't function now for what we need to now, like what we need,
You're
the needs
right.
for the family now,
You're
especially
right.
with COVID and working from home and all this stuff. It's like we need to readjust. And to me, the general plan needs to be updated to reflect how we're living today in these times, what our needs are as of today. So that's one of them. From there, that main document branches out to like several other documents. One being the housing element document, which tells us how we're going to implement housing. At a more detailed level, we have the Poway Road specific plan that looks at a specific area and talks about how we're going to go about developing this specific area. What are the aesthetics? What do we need? How do we want the buildings to look like? How many stories? What about the parking? So we just need to go back and update our documents, but we need to do it with community input. And so what I'm proposing is, after looking at what other cities are doing, like Carlsbad and Escondido, they have planning commissions. And I know that we have one on paper on the Poway website, that the planning commission is also the job of city council. But to me, I feel like those jobs should be independent. We need another group, another independent group from a community perspective, talking to those points, like what do we need from a community perspective. And so what I want to do is also open up the doors to get community feedback that would then flow into our documentation and then provide the vision that we have as a community for Poway, which I feel right now is lacking. I feel like we're going through an identity crisis right now.
I think that's a fair point, because Poway is often referred to itself as the city in the country.
Yeah.
But you look around and it's not. And even before all of this development, I think that could have been challenged because there's so much suburban lifestyle here. So if you could share, I know I had a question in my mind and I can't remember what it was. But I think you touched on some of it. The food hall idea is interesting, but it's tricky because that's private property. That's a private business. And here's the city government. I mean, what could you do to encourage that kind of tenant to take that facility, like the Rite Aid building? What are the things they could do that would be kind of within bounds for local government?
I think it's like having conversations with the folks that own these retail places and having a conversation with them, like, hey, like this is what we need. Is it possible in any way that you can accommodate? And as far as food halls, like there was this one person in National City that saw this space that was vacant and saw a need. And I just feel like, and so he opened up a food hall. It's really small. And the community like was so happy and so excited, and it's become a communal space where people hang out, where they meet, where they talk. And it's like we don't have that here in Poway. And I'm like, I just feel that if there's a will, there's a way. I really, really believe that.
Well, I think when the Outpost project was originally sketched out,
Yeah.
and there was supposed to be a food hall there, right? And the Urge, kind of a local brewery was going to move in, and people were generally very excited about that plan. And on paper, it sounded great. So I think you're right. I think there is a need for that kind of thing, for a food hall. But that Outpost project really went south.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing kind of blew up.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on the Outpost project and the things that maybe the city hall can do to get that back on track?
Well, so that the Outpost got approved. The developer submitted a proposal first time. The first time, I believe it was like 53 units, and it was mixed use, and we had a Crunch Fitness. We had a 20,000 square foot food hall, which was supposed to be, I think at that point in time, like it was supposed to be like one of the top 3 biggest food halls like in San Diego County, like based on square footage.
Yeah.
And we had all these high hopes and high expectations. But then they ran into some issues. And then the developer went back in December of 2021. And with some adjustments, they downsized the retail space. They started adding more residential units. And and it got approved again.
Yeah.
And here we are now, like almost a year later, and it's a bankrupt development just sitting there. Who knows when this is going to get addressed? Who knows what the outcome is of that development just sitting there? Nothing. Rusting rebar, the concrete like falling apart. That wood structure is gonna probably tumble down any second, and I don't
Yeah.
know, like
I agree.
it's really bad.
Yeah, it's baking in the sun.
And then baking in the sun, and then now with the rain
Right.
coming up, I just feel like it's just gonna implode. It's just gonna topple any second. So again, it's just I feel in retrospect is that I think from a city perspective, we should have done also our due diligence. Doing a environmental impact report or asking for certain reports to be done, which we didn't do based on what I've seen at the council meetings. We kind of left it that onus was put on the developer for them to do their own reports. And then we just took it at face value. So I think lesson learned for us is that we need to do our own diligence.
Mhm.
Like we need to do our own legwork. So that way we don't fall into the same situation that we have now with the outpost.
Yeah, I often will comment that Pete Neild, who was a frequent guest on the
Yeah.
podcast, he predicted that when they
Yeah.
dug
Yeah.
2 stories down, they were going to hit
Mhm.
hit water. I think Chris Olps did as well,
Mhm.
predicting it because it's right by the creek bed.
Yeah.
Now, again, I don't know, how much of an environmental impact study they did, or if they did one at all. I'm not sure, but it seemed like that was a big miss. You know, so I think you're right. I think the community is hungry, pardon that term. They're hungry for food courts, for new options, places to enjoy in our city. And we all had high hopes for that outpost. It may still be resurrected, but it's in that unknown state. So it's really difficult.
Yeah. And again, it's just like I mean, okay, so maybe not Rite Aid, but what about Steinmark? I think Steinmark could also be another opportunity there.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's something that needs to be looked at. But what about if we just repurpose those buildings and then just do a rooftop courtyard
Mhm.
where we could have like bands play, not like like bands, like full blown bands, but at least like acoustic music, something
Yeah.
a little bit more
Yeah.
sensible for that space and in that neighborhood. Uh, just a place for people to come together and just hang out and have some drinks, hang out with their family. I really like the hop stop. So something like that, like
Mhm.
that environment
That's
where
a
people
great
can
place.
congregate. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we need more of those places.
Well, I think like to your point earlier, the Poway Bowling Alley is gone,
Yeah.
and that served that purpose to a degree. And it's promised that this Poway Road development is going to have mixed use, commercial, residential. I'm not sure if we really know exactly what those commercial businesses are going to be. Are they going to be a place to hang out,
Hmm.
coffee shops, adult beverages, or is it going to be, dry cleaners?
Hmm.
I mean, we don't know yet, right? So I think we're going to learn a lot more as this thing unfolds. But I think you're tapping into some really interesting things. I mean, what you're telling me is consistent with what I've been hearing in the community as well. So,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I just want to address the audience. Just we have live stream viewers that are watching right now, and everyone, if you're watching on the live stream, thank you very much. You can participate in the live stream if you have questions or comments. You have a question for Delta Esparza. Maybe you have some comments about our community here in the city of Poway. Just type them in on Facebook or on YouTube, and we'll see them here on our screen, and we'll field the questions. We'll give you a chance to participate in this community forum. Um, let's shift gears a little bit, if you don't mind. I mean, you told me a little bit about the fixer upper that you're doing here in Poway. I mean, walk me through that, like how you came to Poway. What were the qualities in our city that attracted you, and why you're really kind of planting your roots in our community.
Yeah, so I've been in this area since 2005. I work on the other side of the 15 highway in Rancho Bernardo, at the business campus there. Actually, it's like I'm pretty much down the street from the Sony building.
Okay.
So that's where I work, in that area. And I moved to Rancho Bernardo in 2005 on the corner of Paseo Lucido and Camino del Norte, right across from CVS. So I've lived there for 13 years. And so I'm very familiar with Poway. I like I was saying earlier, I went to Poway Bowl. I did a lot of hiking, farmers market, the Poway summer concerts. And then again, finally in 2019, I was able to have enough money to buy a place in Poway. I bought a fixer-upper. It was pretty bad. So when I got to my appointment with my retailer, my real estate person, I was waiting outside, waiting for her, and there were some folks that walked up to the house and just literally like pirouetted and like just turned around, and they're like, "Yeah, no, I'm not interested." Like, no. But I walked into the house, and yeah, it was rough. It was pretty rough, but I'm like, "This is the one. Like, this is gonna be my ugly duckling, and I'm gonna turn it into a nice swan. So this is where I'm gonna put down my roots. This is where I'm gonna invest, and this is gonna be my forever home." And I was looking for a small place because I want to age in place. So yeah, and that's how I ended up here.
I mean, to me, this is great because you lived on the periphery of Poway for
Yeah.
quite a while, so you knew about our city, and you liked it here, and,
Yeah.
and you liked it so much that you wanted to move. And the minute you move in, you've got this big project on
Yeah.
your hands, right? You've got to remodel a kitchen. I mean, you were
Yeah.
telling me when we met for coffee, there was like exposed,
Those
like electrical. I
for
mean,
a
it was
long
just,
time.
it was a big project.
Yeah.
And that really consumed you for
Mhm.
like about a year or so.
It's still consuming me, yes.
Oh, it still is.
Yeah, I just went through a bathroom remodel, actually, like, I finished at the end of August, so I was going through a remodel, and then I got COVID, and then I was trying to run for public office, like, all at the same time, so I just had a lot going on in August.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
mean, because, and plus you have your career and
And then that.
oh yeah, and then that. So we have some questions. If you mind, if we can take some of
Yeah.
these, is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is one. This is from another candidate, and it's from Hiram Soto, and he says, "Can you describe the moment you realized that you need to run for city council?"
Yes, I I remember, the night, um, I was talking to, Mariana. We were discussing some things, and 2 weeks before there was the announcement for the Larchmont subdivision, and then that night I was talking to Mariana. It was August, I think August 9th. And we were talking, we're like, "Oh my gosh, there's like the McGee project now coming up, and oh my gosh, like another development, like, when is this gonna end? When is this gonna stop?" Like, it just feels like it's every 2 weeks or every month we're like hearing about this new development. And we're not talking about infrastructure, we're not talking about parking, we're not talking about the impact to schools, we're not talking like the domino effect of all this development coming in.
Mhm.
And then that's where I just kind of something happened to me. And I was like, I cannot take this anymore. Like, I cannot take 4 more years of this. And Mariana and I were just talking. We are like, well, who else is running? And at that point in time, it was the current mayor and another person. And so that's when I made my decision. Like, nobody else is, no other candidate that I would vote for is stepping up. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to run. And I know I'm coming in late, and I know I'm coming in with no team, with nothing. I'm like literally starting from ground zero. And I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make this work.
To me, was so amazing. When you were sharing this with me a few days ago, is yeah, you get here, you're buried in your house, fixing everything up, and then when you look around, you're like, wait a minute, this isn't the community that I really want to, put my roots in. This isn't what I signed up for, right? And rather than blame others, rather than complain, you said, "Oh, I'll fix it." I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And going up against you know, an incumbent mayor who's running for reelection now for his third term.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, that takes a lot of guts to do what you're doing. And there is a great sense of sort of what I'll say is there's an anti-incumbent fervor in parts of Poway. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to consider you, you know, because of that.
Hmm.
Good on you. I mean, that's great. Okay, so there's got a few more questions here and comments. And this is from Mariana, who you were just talking about. She said they didn't do an EIR for the outpost, even though many of us voiced strong opinions about it. Okay, so apparently that wasn't done. Mariana goes on to say, we had a wonderful plan for rejuvenating Poway many years ago in 2003. Many of us were excited to get to participate in this plan. Then the plan just disappeared. You mentioned at the candidate forum that you were interested in having town halls. I'm
Yeah.
excited about the idea. It was very community building.
Hmm.
So can you
Hmm.
tell me a little bit about your vision with town halls?
Yeah, I want to open the doors to the community. I want to create a space where people feel comfortable to voice their opinions and their concerns. Um, the city council chambers can be intimidating for
Oh,
a lot of
yeah, for
folks.
sure.
It kind of feels like a gladiator arena, and you're just waiting for a bear or a lion to just pop out of nowhere. And the reason why I say that is because the seats are like high up. You're like surrounded in like a semicircle, and then you're like right in the middle on this podium looking up. You got cameras on you, you got people looking at you, and
Mhm.
it could feel like uncomfortable for a lot of folks. Um, And so I want to create spaces for folks to feel comfortable to have conversations with me and with the council. And one of those is the town halls. Also, I was looking at what other mayors are doing, and the mayor of Escondido, he goes out to the community, goes to like coffee houses or restaurants, and has like these intimate gatherings with the community with like 15 to 20 people, and it's just a chat with the mayor. That's something that I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Like that, I would like to do that. Um, and it's just another space for people to voice their concerns. And I just want to ensure that the communication lines between the community and the council are as wide as we can like open them. Um, I want that two-way communication to be there for the community and for city council. Like, I don't want folks to be surprised, like why things are happening or not have a clue about what's going on.
Mhm.
I want to be as transparent with what we're doing as possible. And one of those avenues is the town halls and also possible chats with the community in a more intimate setting.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because you're right, going to City Hall is intimidating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And besides they're up on a die,
Yeah.
the lights, the cameras, you're at a podium, and then
Yeah.
and the minute you start talking, the ticker
Oh, that
starts
too.
going, and
That
it's
too.
like you're on a
Yeah.
game show.
Yeah.
You got to get it done in 3 minutes or
Yeah.
less. But that's interesting. You're comparing it to like the Roman Colosseum.
Yeah. It kind of felt a little bit like that.
Well, there was one on your website. You talked a little bit about city council needs to listen, respect, and address the concerns of the community.
Yeah. Some of the comments that are made kind of feels like you're being talked down to, or that your concern is of no importance. I spoke to one person that is now having to deal with the outcome of Poway Road, with the increase in traffic on Poway Road and his street now becoming a thoroughfare. And he told me that he went to city council and asked for speed bumps, and they told him that it's not needed.
Mhm.
And so he's like, what? Like, he's like, can you come to my street and see how fast the cars are like going up and down my street? He's like, we need like speed bumps. We need something to calm down the traffic,
Mhm.
because where he lives, right across the street or catty corner from where he lives, there's like a lot of apartments and there's like kids there. And he's just worried that one day he's going to come out and, to a unfortunate situation there in his neighborhood. So yeah, and then just, yeah,
It's true. I mean, because even in the neighborhood where I live off of Stone Canyon, and
mhm,
people go fast on that
yeah,
street.
yeah,
And our neighbors here have been, expressing concern, and they went to the city hall. And Barry Leonard is our, well, I've been District 3, but most of Green Valley's in District 2. And Barry Leonard is the councilman, and they went and spoke to him. And to his credit, he came out and he got the traffic people involved, and
mhm,
the citizens wanted speed bumps. The citizens wanted more stop signs.
mhm,
But for some reason, the city couldn't do that. I don't know the details, but what they ended up doing is restriping it to make the lanes narrower,
mhm,
to give a sense that you
mhm,
have to slow down. And that worked
yeah,
to a degree. But, when the city is growing so rapidly, and we're going to have a lot more people moving in along Poway Road for
mhm,
sure.
mhm,
Yeah, more traffic, more
mhm,
concerns. So that's a legit point.
mhm.
Yeah. Can we take a few more questions?
Yes.
Yeah, and I've got a whole bunch of other things to discuss. So, again, if you're watching on the live stream, feel free to chime in. Um, Anna Quint asks, when did you move to Poway? But I think you already answered that,
Yeah.
right?
2019, February 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I lived down the street less than a mile away for 13 years.
Okay, and then Anna has another question for you, and she asks, who inspires you?
My parents. My parents have been very inspirational. Um, they came to this country with nothing, and they built their lives here, and just hitting roadblock after roadblock, and just overcoming obstacles, and ensuring that their family had the education that we got, and just being there, and just being um, real rock to the family, like, yeah.
That's cool.
So
Well, as long as you're talking about your family,
mhm.
if you could, let's kind of roll the clock back and tell us a little bit about, where you grew up, maybe where you went to school, a little bit about your career, leading up to the early days of your life before you
Mhm.
came to Poway.
So I'm originally from Southern California, South LA, and daughter of immigrants. And they taught me the importance of perseverance, hard work, and compassion. And those are characteristics that have helped me throughout my life. I grew up in a rough neighborhood. So I learned how to have thick skin, and just how to have things just roll off me
Good for you.
and just move on, just carry
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
um, and so I ended up going to university at San Francisco State. My initial major was international relations, and I took Japanese as part of my curriculum as my third language. I got up to the fifth grade level, but while I was in the Bay Area, I got distracted with all the technology that was coming out of that area during the dot-com boom. And a lot of my friends at the time started transitioning over to computer science. Um, and saying, "Hey, this is where the money's at. Like, this is where
Yeah.
the future is at. This is
Mhm.
where blah 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 blah." And so I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm in the wrong career path. Like I need to move over to computer science." So I ended up changing my major to computer science. The upside is that I had some programming experience in high school. I did these video games, but I never thought that would be my future career. I just thought, like, who would pay me to do these video games?
Right.
Like, who would do that? But yeah. So I was in the Bay Area, but because of the cost of living, I had to move back closer to my parents. And the cost of living there in the Bay Area, as much as I loved it, it was just really hard. At one point, I was working 3 jobs. At one point, I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 1 bathroom with 4 other classmates or
Wow.
college mates.
Uh-huh.
And then another time, I moved to another part of San Francisco, and there I was living in a dining room. And I was sharing a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 other people, and I was living in the dining room, one other person in the living room, the other person in the bedroom. So, yeah, it was a bit rough. And then having to go to school and it was just like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
So, I ended up moving back to Southern California. I graduated from Cal State Long Beach with my degree in computer science. And then I ended up getting a job in the defense industry, and I've been there since. I currently work for a local defense company, and they told me that they'd pay for my graduate degree. So now I have a master's in systems engineering as well.
Oh, right on. It's a real success story. I mean, daughter of immigrants, and now you not only have a bachelor's, you have a master's degree. You got a great career in the defense industry. Bought your first home, setting up your roots here in Poway. I mean, that's terrific. Your parents must be really proud of you.
It's actually my second home.
Oh, it is? Pardon me. Excuse me. Okay, your second home. Okay.
Yeah, I still have my first home, but
Okay, good for you. That's awesome. Okay, so I got a bunch more questions. Are you doing okay on time?
Yeah.
Okay, and we got a pretty good audience here on the live stream, and this will be available. The recorded version will be on YouTube and Facebook, and the audio version will be on Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, all those platforms. But you're talking a little bit about your computer science and technical, and it's kind of the left brain, right brain thing. So let's flip to the other side and talk about art. And you touched a little bit on it about music and things, but on your website, you talk a little bit about the Poway Performing Arts Center.
Yes.
So give me your thoughts on that facility and maybe the vision you have for it.
I love the PCPA. There was this one time where I had dental surgery, and I still wanted to go see this event at the PCPA. And I told my partner, I don't care. I know my face is swollen and I look like this, but I still want to go.
Yeah.
And we went, and I had a blast. So the PCPA has been very important to me. I'm a big fan of the arts. That's an area where I struggle. My brain's not wired in that way. So that's why I appreciate it so much. And I'm a huge fan of the symphony. And I used to go to downtown San Diego to attend events. And so now I'm just so happy that we have something close to home. The PCPA, they have the symphony has like events there, and it's just lovely, and I love it. So and they also opened up the space for art exhibits as well. And I think just recently, Poway on Stage has been I feel like they've done a pretty good job so far, curating the shows and bringing in more diverse shows and just stuff that we would be interested in. So we got the symphony, we got the community events, we got Poway on Stage, a lot, and then plus PUSD. There's just a lot going on.
You're right.
In that space. So it's a treasure to have that here and so close in our community.
It is. It's a beautiful facility, and it is special to have it in Poway. But it's a tricky thing, right? Because was it co-owned, right, by the school district and the city? You have a private company, Poway on Stage, that kind of runs it. But my understanding is that the building is sorely in need of maintenance. The operation runs at a deficit, so the city has to pony up. I know I've heard 700,000, 500,000, 200,000. I'm not sure what the number is.
I think right now, in the latest budget's around 500,000.
Okay.
Which is actually a bit below than what we're spending on Lake Poway.
Okay.
Right. As of today, according to the budget.
But Lake Poway, so that's an interesting comparison, because Lake Poway is not self-sufficient either then, right?
No.
It's not paid for by the people that pay to park their car or the fishing licenses.
It's a city expense. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's for the community, and I believe that we should have amenities for the community, because that's what makes it a community here.
Right.
It's for us. It's for our improving our quality of life. So I believe the same thing with the PCPA, that it helps with our quality of life. It brings in another part of that aspect.
But it's weird because the school district's involved, and they've got their own financial challenges as well. So the future, I mean, is the Poway Performing Arts Center something that maybe the city should own exclusively, or do you like the shared the shared ownership, or should it be privatized? I mean, how do you see that going?
Well, I would like to give the PCPA some time, as far as shared ownership. And the reason why I say that is because uh, right now they were in the process of doing like an analysis, a report of like what should be the path forward for the PCPA.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they're going through that right now, and they just released the report um, looking at endowments. How can we raise money to keep it afloat? But I just recently, the PUSD just came in with some additional funding and with additional support. And they're looking at having more events, which would help with the overall funding to some extent, not 100%.
Yeah.
But they're, what I'm saying is like right now, they know that there's like an issue and some concern about how to fund it. But right now they're heading in a direction on trying to figure that out. And I think right now they're heading in the right direction. And I think we probably just need to give it some little more time to iron out any wrinkles,
Mm-hmm.
and see if going forward we could still have the same type of shared ownership.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, because historically it was always kind of out there and there was a
Yeah,
deficit and
yeah,
no one really paid attention
yeah,
to it. But you're right. Now community
yeah.
organized, like Janet Latang. Have you
Yes,
met her?
yeah.
She's
Oh,
wonderful.
yes. She's
And,
amazing.
and so she's really involved in trying to help move this
Mhm.
along, because she's a big supporter of the arts. So yeah, so it's good that it's being addressed. And to your point, let's see where it takes us,
Yeah.
right?
I think we just need to give it a couple more years and
Yeah.
see.
Okay.
Because they're trying to like figure things out, sort things out. Janet Latang has been such a huge champion of this effort, and also Jana Johnson as well. So we have some folks that are like heavily involved in trying to ensure that we are able to keep this amazing treasure for Poway.
That's awesome.
And I'm on board.
Okay. I think you've made that clear. Okay. So we got some more questions here. And, again, if you're watching on the live stream, feel free to, just type in your questions or comments. We'll read them on the air. And Anna, to her credit, thank you, Anna. You've got another really good question. And it says, what's your thoughts about Poway not having a climate action plan? This has come up with all of my podcast guests. So what are your thoughts on this topic?
I am for having a climate action plan. I think it makes sense for the community. It makes sense financially. It makes sense from a health perspective for us. And then just as a community, as a community as a whole. And when I talk about a health perspective, it's like I grew up in South LA. I know what it means to live in a city where we have smog. When I was a kid, I didn't know that we were surrounded by a mountain range because I never saw it because of smog.
Wow, that's true.
And I was doing some research about the smog and how it came about. And it's actually Los Angeles has been dealing with this issue since like the 1940s.
Oh yeah.
And it was so bad during that time. It was so bad that the visibility, you couldn't see more than 10 feet. It was so bad that people were like crying because of the smog. It was so, it was just like so much smog that they couldn't even open their eyes and they were tearing up. And it got so bad that at some point they even had gas mask because they couldn't breathe very well. And thank goodness for the government stepping in and signing off policies that helped clean the air. And one of them was Ronald Reagan. He signed a policy it was one of the Clean Air Acts. Another person that helped with the smog issue is Richard Nixon. He was the one that signed off on the EPA.
Right.
So we do have some government officials that are concerned and have done stuff, have signed off on policies that do help the community. And now I can most of the time see the mountain range in LA. I'm not waking up in the morning to this haze, this gray, dirty haze in the sky. We have, the air's gotten a lot better. It's a lot cleaner. I also have family during that time when I was growing up that had asthma problems. And now as adults, they still have asthma because of how bad the smog was back when I was growing up. I got the tail end of it when I was growing up. It's like it started to become a bit more cleaner, like the air.
Yeah.
So I don't have any asthma problems. So
Well,
yeah, so it's
I was gonna say my wife grew up in the Inland Empire,
uh-huh.
and they would sometimes have days where it was so smoggy that they sent the children
Yeah.
home. You know, it's like a snow day.
Uh-huh.
You know, in that they have in New England, they would instead have smog days, and the kids wouldn't go to school. Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's been a lot of efforts, but let's bring it back to Poway.
Yeah.
I mean, so what are some of the things that you think Poway should do in a climate action plan? What are some initiatives that make sense for our
Yeah.
city?
So we need to look at solar. We need to look at how to reduce our carbon footprint. I go around town, just you don't even need to go that far to start seeing the shopping centers start installing charging stations for EV vehicles. So it's like people are moving in that direction. We, for some reason, are just want to be stuck in time. I don't know. But we need to look at installing solar panels, like how to reuse our water. I know John Mullen, I think in the past said that it wasn't very cost effective, but maybe we need to look at that because times change, technology changes. Another thing that I'm concerned about is extreme heat. This year we had, I think, about over 11 days of extreme heat weather. And we need to start thinking about like, how is that impacting our community? There's a lot of folks in our community that don't have AC. A lot of senior citizens that are probably being impacted, or we do have AC, but there's probably folks that are struggling financially that don't want to turn on their AC. And so we need to figure out, like, do we need to open up more cooling stations, more cooling zones? Or do we need to plant more trees? Because I've read that if you live in an area where there's a lot of trees, it actually decreases the temperature by sometimes up to 5 degrees.
Wow.
So we just need to start just looking at what can we do here to address extreme heat, which we're going to be dealing with in the future. Drought, how to address that, what can we do? Also flooding. We're susceptible to flooding here, especially when it rains, because the soil is so dry that it's like unable to absorb it, can't absorb the water. So the water just starts to run off and pile up because the soil can't take it. And that's why we have sandbags, right? Like during the rainy season. And also another interesting thing is I was looking at Arizona. I think it's Phoenix, Arizona. They're dealing with extreme heat there as well. But it's gotten worse. It's gotten so bad that they now have they hired somebody. It's a heat authority person whose sole job now is to look at how to address extreme heat conditions. And also I've learned that extreme heat is the number one extreme weather condition that kills the most people. Aside from hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding, wildfires, extreme heat is the number one cause of death from all of those, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And air conditioning, one of the greatest inventions in humankind. But to your point, not everyone has that, and it's expensive to power if you don't have solar, right? I mean, because San Diego Gas and Electric has some of the highest electric rates in America. But the vision I had when you were talking earlier about the flooding is, I remember it was like, I don't know, 6-7 years ago here in Poway, we had like a deluge of rain. And the creek that runs through Old Poway Park, and part of it is like a concrete box, and then part of it is like a legit creek where there's the bridges. I mean, that was like about to overflow because the water was just rushing down the hill. And to your point, it wasn't being absorbed in the soil.
You can't.
Yeah.
I think the soil's like in shock. Like, what's going on? What is all this? I can't take it.
Right. And they just, it's kind of like what you're saying, when you had a thick skin growing up as a kid, they just like let it slide right off.
That's what
Yeah, so this is an interesting topic, but the crazy angle to this that I find interesting is like regardless of what you think should be in the green, the climate action plan, it is interesting that Poway is the only city in the county that doesn't have a climate action
Mhm.
plan. I mean, what's your take on that?
We need to generate one. Yeah. And we have a lot of amazing examples again from other cities. And I know I keep bringing Escondido up, but right now there was this rating that was done recently, I think last year. They looked at all the climate action plans in all of San Diego County, and Escondido was listed as number one, like the most effective. They had the most effective climate action plan. Um, when they did the rankings, and they looked at several things in the document, like
Mm.
why is it so effective? What did they do that other towns are not doing? And it even surpassed San Diego City. So
Well, is there
yeah.
can you share maybe one nugget from that Escondido plan that jumped out to you that thought, wow, that's a really good idea?
um, there is a lot. I read I
It's
read a
okay.
lot of plans. um, but they're looking at street calming. I didn't know traffic calming. I didn't know traffic calming was part of a climate action. It's part of the climate action plan.
Mhm.
The city of San Diego has street calming in their climate action plan. Um, so right now, the city of San Diego is about to install 13 to 15 roundabouts. And they're called quick builds. And the reason why these roundabouts are called quick builds is because you could set these roundabouts in 1 to 2 weeks. 1 to 2 weeks, you have a roundabout.
Mhm.
And also because of that, it's being funded by the Federal Transportation Agency. The materials are, and the city of San Diego only needs to put in the labor.
Really?
So it's just you just pop it up. It's just like boom. It's just like right there. Like
Roundabouts are crazy the first time you drive in
yeah.
one, but they're very efficient, right? Because there's no stoplight, no stop
Mhm.
sign, traffic flows. Um, and then just off the top of your head, is there an intersection in Poway that you think a roundabout would make sense?
Um. So I live off of Frame. Uh. Um. Between south of Target
Yeah.
as a landmark and Poway Road. And I'm just thinking, once all this traffic comes in from Poway Road, and then also there's talk about Meadowbrook being developed and Rimbach, I want to say, this other place in that area, Rimbach, also possibly developers are looking at that area. So I'm just thinking, how is Pomerado going to look like? And right now, it's really scary to cross Pomerado. We don't have that many crosswalks. Also, there's a lot of apartments on the other side, on the west side of Pomerado, and they don't have sufficient parking, so they end up parking in my neighborhood. So you see people like trying to cross Pomerado, like trying to get to their cars. And you
I
see
think a lot
like,
of them go to the Little League field, right?
oh, and that too.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot going on there. And plus, the
Mhm.
school, Pomerado Elementary, Meadowbrook, there's just a lot of folks going back and forth. And it's scary because sometimes I see older adults like trying to cross, and I'm just like, oh, it's just very scary. So I I'm thinking, maybe a roundabout. I know that I'm gonna get probably a lot of angry faces, but again, I'm just throwing out ideas. That might not be the solution, but I'm just throwing out ideas.
But it's an interesting idea because you're right. Like on Pomerado, I mean, there's some people that
Yeah,
I mean, there's like a drag strip
yeah,
that street.
yeah.
The this has been discussed and I've off and on in Poway for some time ago about roundabouts, and the intersection I heard people mention was on Espola, where Del Poniente High Valley,
Uh-huh.
kind of going up the hill before you get to Poway High School.
Okay.
There's a stoplight there, and people thought that would be a good roundabout.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good spot
Mhm.
for one.
Mhm.
And to your point, I think, yeah, Pomerado, I mean, the traffic there
Yeah,
can be
it could
crazy.
get hectic there sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
And then especially, yeah, with the schools nearby and the
Yeah.
25 miles an hour when the kids are in school, and that's tricky. So that, that would be a traffic calming measure, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So it would kind of deter the drag strip of
And at the
harm.
same time, keep the traffic flowing.
Correct. Right. So you're not stuck at
It's
a light for,
you're not.
yeah.
It's continuous. It's amazing, actually. Yeah.
There, once you you have to do them a few times and then you're
Yeah.
good. But the first couple, you're like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
It's like you're in a roller coaster,
Yeah.
but it's cool. They're you're right. I mean, they've been studied and
Yeah.
they do great things. I've got so much more. You doing okay on
Yeah.
time? Okay, is our audience doing all right? I think we've got a nice, solid live stream audience. Let's. I want to talk a little bit about the competitive landscape of your race. I mean, we don't need to name names, but what do you think if you're looking at yourself? I mean, obviously there's the incumbent mayor. I'll name a name, Steve Vaus, and then there's 3 other challengers for your race. I mean, what do you think makes you different than the other candidates and makes you special, that people should vote for you and not for them?
I'm running a grassroots campaign. So it's just me, and I don't have much. And so I am doing this for the greater good. I'm not doing this for myself. I'm not doing this because I'm looking at using this as an opportunity for other political aspirations or any other type of aspiration. Someone asked me, are you looking at offices beyond public office beyond mayor? And the answer to that is no. I am truly invested and concerned about the way that the path that this town is going, and I'm also concerned about not really getting a sense that there's a vision for our future for this town. And again, as mentioned earlier, I just kind of feel like we're going through an identity crisis, and I think we just need to reset and figure out, like, who are we now today at this point in time, and where do we want to go? I do know that what we do want to do is maintain our charm and our character, but from there, where else are we heading? What is our vision for our future? And I want to do that as a community. I don't want it to just be one person shouting out ideas. No, it's like this is for us as a whole, as a community. It's not about me, it's about us. So I'm in it for the greater good of the community. I'm in it because this is, again, where I plan on aging in place. This is very important to me. And just after talking to everyone and hearing everyone's concerns, some of them conversations are confidential, but it really people, some folks got like emotional when I was talking to them, and it's like this is bigger than me. This everything, like Poway running, like it's bigger than me. Like, I'm here to represent the town.
It's interesting too, because it feels like a lot has changed in a short amount of time. You talk about the identity crisis for our city. But there are people that for the longest time lived in Poway, and everything's like, oh, this is a great city. This is our city in the country, a wonderful place to raise a family, lowest crime rate in the county. Everyone's like, oh, this is all, milk and honey, right? We live in Disneyland, right? But now suddenly there's a lot more angry people that are upset at the change. I mean, I was just today, I was driving down Pomerado and I saw campaign signs that are kind of rogue, but they were putting up campaign signs that said cancel Voss. And I was shocked by that. I mean, it was like a direct attack on the mayor. So it just seems like the situation is different. And that's what's interesting about your candidacy is you're jumping in for all the right reasons. You got in at the last minute. You don't have a political organization, but yet when I drive around the city of Poway, I'm seeing Delta Esparza for mayor signs all over the place. I mean, it's really amazing.
yeah, I'm amazed too.
Um,
I I I feel like I I feel like I'm in the same boat as the community. I'm concerned, and I'm just not happy in the direction that we're heading right now. And it just kind of feels like we're in this wagon, and like there's nobody driving the wagon. It's just like the horses are just we're just being like taken by these horses, and I don't know where we're going. And there's nobody at the driver's seat.
oh,
And we're just all in this wagon.
well, it's funny you
Like,
use the horse and wagon analogy
yeah,
for the city and the country, where a lot of folks have
yeah,
horses. Um, I want to just switch gears if you don't
uh,
mind. On your website, you talk about parks and
mhm.
open space. Kind of take me down that path. Why are those so important to you?
Um, uh, Open space is very, very important to me. Like maintaining the open space, preserving the open space. Um, especially, uh, especially for folks that are dealing with a lot of stuff. You know, you got dual income um households, you got, you know, the kids, you got just a lot of stuff going on. You got the noise of the city, the traffic, the and I just feel like these spaces uh create a place for people to like disconnect, to discharge, to recharge.
Hmm.
And I just think it's really important to preserve these areas, not just for us, but also for the biodiversity, for the animals that also live here with us. Um, I know some folks might not be fan of the coyotes, but I mean they live here with us as well, and the rabbits, and just all the wildlife that we have here, the owls, the hawks. I mean, everything. I feel like we should all like coexist here, and I think we can coexist. So again, the open spaces, it's not just for us as a community, uh, for and the kids, the children to enjoy those spaces, but also for all the other life that is here in Poway.
Hmm. Yeah, this is an interesting topic because on one level, a lot of people really love Poway because it has so much open
Hmm.
space, because there are so many trails. I mean,
Yeah,
someone did the math, like the most miles of trails of any city in America. Am I getting that right? I don't know if I am.
yeah, yeah. I think on the website it has like 77, 78.
Yeah.
But yeah, but they're also counting like the trails as they're counting the trails off of like Twin Peaks Road,
Right.
which is like a sidewalk, or I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah. I
once
mean,
they count all of that, it's like in the 70s.
yeah, there's like some trails that are, again, trails
Yeah.
that are like a dirt, almost like an alleyway
Uh-huh.
between properties,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and some of those are really cool.
Yeah.
And some of them, you're just kind of like looking at people's backyards.
Yeah.
But anyways, people still love the trails in Poway. I
Yeah.
get that. Um, but you're talking about uh, wildlife and coexistence, et cetera. What Give me your thoughts on what's going on with the farm in Poway. I mean, it used to be a golf course, then it was abandoned and went fallow, and now it's a radical change. What's going on up there, off of Espola and Martincoit?
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that project and what you like, or maybe what you dislike.
Um, it's not what I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
um, I was invited to somebody's home that uh backs up into that development. And I saw everything that's happening there. Um, and it's not what we thought it was going to be. A lot of us, um, the mounds of dirt, um, where the houses are being plopped on, it looks like 20 feet of raised soil.
Hmm.
And so now it kind of looks like terraces or something, like a terrace type of feel, or
Yeah.
it kind of feels like you're looking at a Egyptian pyramid with like a house on top. I mean, that's how high it is. It's like
Yeah.
so kind of odd.
Hmm.
Um, And then just also, I was at the city council meeting when that lady spoke about the reduced setbacks, how she thought that the homes were going to be 40 feet away, and now it turns out that they're 27 feet away from the property line. And just seeing those pictures that she showed, which I don't think they showed all the pictures that she showed on the video online, but we saw a lot of photographs at that meeting, and the loss of privacy is concerning. There's this one house, their backyard, there's like, at least from one view, there's like 3 houses that could look into their backyard, and they're all like elevated. So, and it's not just one window, it's pretty much the whole, like half of the house that looks into the yard, and you got like 3 of them, and who knows, how many more homes on the other side
Mhm.
can look into their backyard. And they're so high up, it's just like, it's like kind of like looking into a fish tank. When you're feeding the fish, you're like up above on the fish tank and feeding the
Right.
fish. I mean, that's what it feels like, a fishbowl.
Okay, there you go.
And that's like heartbreaking, especially if you have kids and a family and you want to do, gatherings. It just, it feels kind of like you're naked there, like just like for everybody to see. Like, yeah.
But isn't the toothpaste out of the tube, or the horses have left
Yeah.
the barn? I mean, we can't really take it back. But what can be done?
What can be done is for that area, there's still some more development that is left. They're still clearing out spaces. They're still
Mhm.
leveling out. What we need to do is that we need to have somebody out there and ensure that these folks are following the proposal, what they bid to. Because what I'm hearing is that the city council approved proposal A, and then now what they're seeing is like variances of proposal A, and somebody is approving those variances. And like, why are those variances being approved, and why is the community not aware of all these variances that are taking place after the city approves the proposal with the developer? We need to have somebody there on the ground looking at all this. When I went through my home remodel, the inspector was there, like on point, like checking everything, my electrical, my plumbing, checking all this stuff. Like, they're doing their due diligence. Like, why is it that this is not like happening here at these developments?
So let's go back to that point. I guess, again, I may have the numbers wrong, but
Mhm.
there was supposed to be a 40-foot buffer zone,
Yeah.
and that was the plan originally.
Mhm.
Now it's 27
Mhm.
feet. So a variance must have been made, because I'm sure the developer didn't.
Mhm.
If the developer, it's too big of a risk to knowingly break that rule.
Yeah, that's huge. It's a huge
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, you'd have to like tear the house down and
Yeah.
start over. But you're right. Like, who makes those changes? Does the city council have to do that, or is there like a bureaucrat in city hall that can just sign it off?
It seems like what is happening is the latter, what you're saying,
Mm.
that somebody else is signing off on this. And then we're also seeing that with Fairfield too. I remember when Poway Bowl was there was a very defined slope. That slope seems to be disappearing. And that's the reason why the developer was able to do 4-story buildings, was because there was that slope. And because of that slope, when you're on Poway Road, you'd only be seeing maybe 3 stories instead of 4 stories. So they got a variance. But there's a lot of dirt on Fairfield. And they're still bringing in mounds and mounds of soil, and they're leveling it and leveling it. And I'm like, is this going to at some point just be flat? Because they're still leveling.
Right. So
And
it'll be
then
at Poway Road level when they start.
that's what it's starting to look like. And that wasn't our understanding. So what's going on there as well? And then I drove in the neighborhood that is behind Fairfield, and the wall that is just coming up, that is just jutting up from the ground, it's really high. It's so high that I don't even know if that's even legal.
Mhm.
It looks like a 20-foot wall, and there's still rebar like still going up. I'm not sure at the end of the day, like how high is that wall going to be? And I feel like the reason why that wall is being constructed in that way is because they're leveling the dirt, I think, from
Mm.
behind. And they need, I don't know,
So
some
it's
type
like
of
a
retaining
retaining
wall.
wall. Yeah, yeah.
Like, is this a retaining wall?
Yeah.
Because why is the wall so high there? And it's not high. The wall, I think, behind the walls between the homes and the the other complex, Poway Commons,
Mhm.
those look pretty standard, 6 to 8 feet.
Mhm.
But this one is not standard. The one behind Fairfield.
Yeah, so it's probably not like a backyard fence.
It's not a backyard fence whatsoever.
Yeah, it's probably a retaining wall, because they're moving that dirt around. But that's I never really thought of that because you're right. It was sold to us that the 4-story building would look like 3 stories
Mhm.
from driving on
Mhm.
Poway Road.
Mhm.
But if they make it all level at Poway Road level, then yeah, then it's going to be 4 stories. And then the people that live on the back side of that, I mean, that's
That's
that's a pretty
terrible.
radical
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
But you know what? Another project where they raised that level was the Amazon building up in the business park. Um, I mean, are you familiar with kind of like how that all went down?
I'm surprised, just like everyone else, where it's like, where did this building come from? And it just kind of appeared like overnight.
Yeah.
Again, I just feel that the city hasn't been doing a good job of conveying like all the developments that are taking place, or future developments. I was talking to this person that I met today, and he told me that in Escondido, they put huge signs up when there's a development that's going to be coming. Like,
Hmm.
so people know, like, you don't have to go to see, like, there's a big sign there.
Hmm.
Let you know what's going on, what's taking place, how many units, blah, 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 blah. Here's the contact if yeah. Another thing too is that when we have these developments, I don't want to just send out an email or a flyer or mailer to folks that are within 500 yards. Like, no, like everyone should know what's happening because we're all impacted. There is a domino effect. Yeah, I kind of went off a bit.
It's okay. No, but it's okay for you to share your thoughts, and that's what this podcast is about, right?
Mhm.
And I think the topic of development is something that the people in Poway are. It's the main issue, really, in this campaign, I think, and it's the thing that most people, if they're upset about any one thing, that's the dominant issue. Um, I mean, crazy. Got a few more questions. You good? They're
Yeah, we could be here for another few minutes.
okay. All right.
Because my voice is,
No.
I should probably drink some water.
Yeah, just have a sip of water, and this is all chill, so we're good. So let's take a look here, and here's a good one. And this is from Chris Cruz, and she asks, "What's your favorite place to hike in Poway?"
Oh, I have spent a lot of time at Mount Whitson. And not the short route. There is a point in my life where I enjoyed doing 10-mile hikes.
Hmm.
So I would park my car in the neighborhood west of Espola,
Okay.
and then I would walk
Hmm.
from there so I could get my 10 miles and hike up Mount Whitson from Lake
That's
Poway.
a steep hike.
Yeah.
I've done that once
Mhm.
in that direction, and I've done the one on the backside, like when you go up to Ramona.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like a paved
Yeah.
path to the top.
Yes, the
I've
fire
done
road.
Yeah, and I've done that
Mhm.
a number of times.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a special part of
Yeah.
Poway for sure.
Yeah, and then another one is, which I'm not sure if I'll do again. I didn't know, people told me you could literally walk to Ramona from Poway, and I was like, "No, like what? How can you?" They're like, "Yeah, you could walk to Ramona." So I figured out, you could walk to Ramona from Blue Sky
Hmm.
all the way up to the dam where Ramona is, and so yeah, I did that once. It was a bit of a trek. Yeah. So I did that. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, you can walk. You literally can walk from Poway to Ramona.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just make sure you bring a lot of water
Yeah.
and don't do it on a hot day.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
it's a bit taxing.
Yeah, and don't make sure you don't have any helicopters
Yeah.
that rescue you, because we wouldn't want to do that. But here's a few more comments that I think are pretty good. So this is from Mariana Benedict Basilla. There are flood level markers at the community center park I'm guessing that many people don't realize this, and don't realize that this is what those poles are by the back of the creek.
Okay.
They extend 6 to 8 feet above the ground. There must be a legitimate reason why our city put those in. It needs to become okay to have a community discussion about the very real impacts of climate change.
And I think I know what she's talking about, because today when I was standing on the corner of Twin Peaks and Pomerado, I also saw, I never paid too much attention to it, but there is a marker, what looks like to be a marker. It's yellow and it's pretty high. And I'm just like, this is kind of odd. It's just there, but there is a creek there. So now I'm thinking, is that also a marker on that corner that we just weren't aware of? But that is something definitely to look into. I wasn't, thank you, Mariana, for letting me know. I'm going to go walk over there and check that out for sure.
Here's another good question here, and this is from Pete Neild. Let me see if I get this organized. But before, I just want to tee this up, and you know, on your website, you have a nice video. It talks about the reasons you're running, and you're positioning yourself as a change candidate, right? Not a candidate for the status quo. But right now, our city council frequently is unanimous vote, 5-0. In some cases for status quo, in some cases for significant change, right? Like the Poway Road development as an example. So Pete Neild has a question here. And he says, I won't cover the background of the current 5 votes, mayor and the 4 district council persons, but if you are elected mayor, 1 vote changes, one of those 5. So could you go through how you will work with the existing 2 and the possibility of 2 new ones? So let's just say you are elected, you're the change candidate. There'll be 2 incumbents, and let's just say for the sake of discussion that in the other 2 council races, the status quo candidate is elected, and you're the only one of 5 that's change. How would you handle that? What would you do?
So I have been in numerous situations like that, especially at work, where I have to convince people that I have a good idea and maybe my idea is the right idea. But a lot of it is through conversation. So that's going to be my first way to tackle the situation. Is we need to find some common ground. And that common ground is the greater good. And the greater good is the community. We're here at the end of the day for the community and to meet the needs of the community and to address the community's concerns. So that's how I will address that. Another thing too is that by having the town halls, by being transparent, by being vocal, hopefully we could galvanize the community to talk to their representative, so that way we could see some change at city council through their representatives. So it's kind of, I guess, going around.
Yeah. Well, I think
and ensuring that the community of these districts are engaged and talking to their representatives.
well, that makes a lot of sense because as mayor, you have the bully pulpit, right? And so you can obviously, in many cases, take it to the people and try to get their support, even if maybe you're one of 5. Let's just say hypothetically, you're one of 5 that's pushing for a climate action plan, and the other 4 don't want to do it. As mayor, you have some swag, some swagger, some cachet that they won't have, and you'll be able to take that to the people. Yeah, that makes sense. Here's one more comment, and this is from Mariana Basila Benedict. 100 years ago, the Pomerado Road area had a severe flood. Okay.
Oh,
Okay. So, kind of going back in the Wayback
Yeah.
Machine. But that makes sense. I mean, that's the thing with the rain in Southern California, right? We have the dry spells, and then all of a sudden,
we get hammered with rain, like
Yeah.
a monsoon
correct.
at times.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of legitimate issues
Yeah.
there. I mean, I want to thank you very much. I mean, for taking your time to sit here and chat. We've covered a lot. And how long have we been going? An hour and 24 minutes. My goodness. I want to ask you just to, just as we kind of wrap all of this up, What have we not covered that's important to you? Is there a topic that you feel passionate about that we just really haven't talked much on?
Um, yeah, well, yes. So one of the things that I have been looking into is, again, like how do we open up the lines of communication between the community and city council? I looked at what San Marcos is doing, what Carlsbad is doing, Escondido is doing, and they have these committees, boards, commissions that um, create these spaces, these forums for people to participate and have a voice. So one of the things that I was seeing is that in Poway we only have three boards, committees.
Mhm,
We have a traffic committee, we have the budget review committee and
mhm,
and the trails committee, parks and trails.
mhm,
Um, I saw the minutes for the budget committee. Okay, there's like minutes. Um, and that is community based. It's appointed
mhm,
folks. So okay. The traffic committee, that's it. When I looked at who is involved with that, it's like city folks.
mhm,
So I was like, okay, that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking more community based. So I think that's an area of improvement there is that we need to have a traffic and mobility committee to address traffic congestion, parking, how to tackle that, how to bring in ideas on how to address that, looking at traffic calming methods, looking at uh, street connectivity, so that way we could possibly remove some cars off the road and move folks more to trails, to more trails, a better linked trail system. Um, so and then yeah, and then I covered then the parks and trails, yeah. And then there's that group, but I didn't really see any minutes from that group. Not sure what's going on there. But what I want to do, what I'm interested in, and because I have spoken to several folks in the community, is that I want to have a senior committee where senior citizens can congregate, talk, tell us about, like what needs they have, like what are they looking for, what kind of services they're looking for, open up those lines of communication. I also want to have a youth committee as well, because sometimes when we talk, we have like more of a adult focus centric
mhm.
mindset. And there's other folks besides adults that live here, right? Like the community,
Yeah,
which we sometimes
yeah.
tend to forget. Some
Mhm,
folks, not all.
mhm,
But I want to bring them in and see like what can we do for you? What services can we provide for you? San Marcos has that, and it's really cool. I looked at the minutes for the youth committee, and they're like busy, like trying to think about events that they could do, how to socialize those events with their peers in high school or in middle school, or how do they go about socializing that information? What concerns do they have? And they have minutes, they have meetings. I mean, it's like amazing. And how amazing would it be to provide this forum for our youth to communicate with us and let us know what's going on? Um, and then also, this would look really great on their college applications. And then also, we have some engagement here now with the city. We have some folks now engaging with the city and hopefully creating avenues and paths for future leaders here in Poway or elsewhere.
mhm,
So I'm just looking at that. There's also a climate action committee that I think it was Carlsbad that had it. Um, and then just also a growth committee too. It's like, and that's the committee that thinks about like, what is our vision? This one was Carlsbad. What is our vision for Carlsbad? Because they still want to maintain that small beach town feel, but they're understanding that they have to grow. And so how do we tackle that? Like, what can we do to still keep that small town beach feel in Carlsbad?
mhm.
Um,
Well,
so just things like that.
it sounds like, the consistent theme here uh, is, like you say, engagement,
Yes, engagement.
listening to the people, providing, formal and informal ways that they can express themselves and enact change
Hmm.
and do it in a less intimidating environment.
Yes, yes.
Um, And committees kind of sound a little bit bureaucratic and
Mhm.
inside baseball sort of thing, but the but like you talked about town hall meetings
Mhm.
and open houses,
Mhm.
and so yeah, that would be good. I mean, just to kind of have a flow of conversation,
Yeah.
because a lot of people in our city want to be heard, but for whatever reason feel they're not being listened
Mhm.
to. There's a lot of other people that are just so busy with their
Yeah.
lives
Yeah.
that they never really think about expressing themselves, but
Yeah.
if those opportunities exist, maybe they
Mhm.
jump on board.
Mhm.
Well, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think hopefully our viewers got a chance to get to meet you and understand you and learn about your values, and that's the best part about this podcast.
Yes.
So what's next on the campaign trail? What do and we're getting into the home stretch.
Yeah. So I was able to take a month off from work to just focus on the campaign, and my company has been like very supportive. But I go back to work tomorrow, which is going to be kind of bizarre because I haven't been at work for a month, and now I have to like come up to speed because like all this stuff that I've been missing out on. So I'm still going to be chugging along, not as much as I have been, but you're still going to see me out there. I'm still going to be doing the street campaigning on the corner. Um, I'm still going to be talking to people and just ensuring that folks, get out and vote.
So if someone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect?
Right now, you could email me at delta@deltaforpoway.com, or you could give me a call at area code 651-353-5129. And
What?
that area code is from Minnesota. That's where I was living at before.
Just repeat that number real quick.
651-353-5129.
Okay. I mean, that's again very brave, very bold of you to put that out and to invite people to get back to you. So good luck in the
Thank
campaign.
you.
And people have their ballots in their hands right now. They're making decisions. So hopefully this podcast is arriving at just the right time. But I wish you the best.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us as well.
Okay. Thanks again, friends. We'll be back at you. By the way, we've got a podcast episode on Monday with Poway Unified School District candidate Patrick Batten. That'll be Monday at 7. And then Tuesday, we are scheduled with Tony Russo at 7. But that's the same time as game 1 of the National League Championship Series with the Padres. So we might reschedule that. And then on Wednesday, Yuri Bolin will be here, another candidate for mayor, and he'll be here on Wednesday. So look on my website, johnrileyproject.com, or go on my Facebook page where I think I have the announcement, the list, and that's at John Riley Project on Facebook. But anyways, thanks again, friends. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.